The world is like a ride at an amusement park, and when you choose to go on it, you think it's real, because that's how powerful our minds are.
I can tell you from experience, the effect you have on others is the most valuable currency there is.
Don't think, feel. It is like a finger pointing away to the moon. Don't concentrate on the finger or you will miss all that heavenly glory.
You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Welcome to another episode of Digital Communion. My name is Thomas. I'm here as always with my co-host Nick Gabriel. How are you, Nick?
I'm exceptionally well, my brother. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic, man. I'm glad to be chatting with you today, talking with you today. Stumbling over my words. I'm so excited. I'm effusive in my excitement. I want to ask you today about health. What does being healthy mean to you?
That's a very interesting question. So, do you know who Mike Mentzer was? Of course you do. Father of high intensity training.
Oh, Mentzer,
Yes.
M-E-N-T-Z-E-R. Yes, of course I do.
Yeah.
Hey, Mentzer was like this.
He made an interesting statement in one of his books, which I read when I was 15 or 16. I can't remember it exactly, but I'm paraphrasing. And he said that there is no such thing as a state of super health, and that health was a binary phenomenon. You're either healthy or you're not. And I had that on my mind for a long time. It was rattling around in there for years. And we have to look at what our definition of health is. And I'm starting to move towards the perspective that health cannot be extricated from vibrancy, and that just because there's an absence of disease or dis-ease does not necessarily imply that there is the presence of health. So I personally know when I am healthy. It's something tangible. I can feel. My body is vital. I wake up feeling good. I wake up with a spring in my step. I'm not exhausted. I have a good outlook on the world. My body feels limber. I feel good. And that's very different to just waking up without coughing or without muscle cramps or whatever a form of disease might take. And this is something I discuss in different ways with my business partner, who's an extraordinarily intelligent man. And for those of you who don't know, he is a doctor, a high-level emergency medicine doctor who spent almost 20 years in the ER, also known in England as the AE. In the US, you guys call it the ER, the emergency room. In England, it's called A&E, which is accidents and emergencies. And it's very interesting because some of the stories he's told me about just the nature of what can go wrong with people. If he always says that he feels he might have some slight PTSD just from the things he's seen. I haven't really answered your question, Thomas, but all I know is that I'm very well aware of what health means to me, and I'm just very grateful for it, for when I have it. It's not all the time, but when it's present, I am so grateful and appreciative of it.
You mentioned a lot of physiological markers, like how you feel when you wake up, how you do or do not feel like the supple leopard. Couldn't you attribute that to waves in hormonal response, or particular things that you've eaten? Is it a state that is constantly under fire by all the elements and your emotional state? Is it purely physiological? Is it like, I want to get to a closer definition of what that is for the human organism, so that then we can apply it to everybody else and be like, oh, well, being healthy is this. So it seems like yours varies according, day by day. And I wonder, what can you do to be in a sustained state of health?
So I have a friend who shall not be named. His location shall not be named. He grows.
And this conversation may or may not have happened. We can't say.
He grows weed on a small scale for personal consumption. And one day he was showing me some of his weed plants, and he was showing me his grow setup, and the amount of different variables and factors that go into keeping those plants healthy was astounding. Absolutely astounded me. Whether it's the quality and amount of light, the air circulation, the nutrients in the soil, the removal of organisms and insects that might damage the plant. I mean, the number of variables, it just blew my mind. And as he was showing this to me, I started to have this idea that human beings are, and I've mentioned this on another podcast, it wasn't with us, it was when I was a guest on another show, but that human beings are a lot more analogous to plants than they are to machines. And that it's a constant process of tuning these environmental variables and adjusting both the stimuli that we're exposed to and noting the responses that our body is giving us from the stimuli that we're receiving from the environment. And it's a razor's edge. It's something my girlfriend has been talking about lately, is the razor's edge. And I think that one of the ways you can tell that a lot of people don't take this walk on the razor's edge seriously, or may not even be aware of it and have fallen off to the wrong side, is just by asking the question, when you look at an individual, are they vibrant? Now, I know a lot of it is the luck of the draw. A lot of it is genetics. That's why you have that full head of hair and those movie star teeth, right? It's partly because you look after yourself, and it's also partly because your mom and dad gave you a very powerful gift, right? But a lot of it as well is how you treat the vehicle and how you maintain it. And we can just look. Anyone whose eyes are open and is willing to look can see that the modern Western diet and lifestyle is not conducive to vibrancy. I'm sure you're familiar with the work of Weston A. Price.
Yes.
He mapped it all out for us. He went and did this work for us. He went around the world to indigenous populations and discovered that they are generally, up until the point before they're tainted by the Western lifestyle and influence, are generally far healthier and more vibrant. He did this for us. He proved it. It's conclusive and it's documented. And I think that this is something that humanity needs to wake up to, and we need, not all of it is within our power. Perhaps governments are spraying us with chemtrails, right? That's not in my power. Like, I can't go and not breathe when I'm outside. Whether you believe that conspiracy or not, I'm not sure of it. But there are certain things that are within my power. I know I can very easily not consume high fructose corn syrup or hydrogenated fats. I know that. And I feel that this is another thing that is very interesting, dude. A very smart man, a man way smarter than me, put me onto this. And that is, have you ever heard of the word nescience?
How do you spell that?
Nescience. Nescience. It's an almost forgotten word. Nescience is when you do the wrong thing even when you know what the right thing is. And nescience is when you do the wrong thing because you don't have the correct information available, or it's unknowing. And it's different to ignorance, which he calls ignorance, as in you know what the right thing is, but you ignore it anyway. And so you and I, for example, due to whatever reasons, are aware of the fact that certain things make the vehicle vibrant and certain things cause it to deteriorate. But the sad fact is, a lot of the population is nescient. And I just find that very sad and very scary. And I really hope people like yourself can help to address that. And I know there are people addressing that, and there are people who are waking up, and that the human population won't be able to be fooled forever by these massive corporations who have interests in having us be sick and weak and unhealthy and controllable, and who profit off the back of toxins that they're peddling to us. Does that answer your question?
Almost. So you've touched on food and vibrancy, which I would say, is like a nice blend of medicine that you can take to, feel better, and that will affect the emotional state. I want to know, finally, how much movement or physicality do you think is required to be considered healthy? Because my position there is, and I had this discussion with a fellow trainer the other day. I said, I am sure that the things that we're doing to our body in order to make them look more dramatic and stronger and have more muscles, I'm sure that that's shortening my life. And I don't know why. I think he totally disagreed. He said, oh no, it's making your life longer, and it's making you stronger. And I agree with the strengthening part, and I do it because I want the quality of life that having a strong and supple body will give me, even if that means less years on the back end. But I can't imagine that, building up to a 300-pound bench press when you're a frail guy, the amount of food that you need, the amount of training and trauma that you put on your bones and tendons and ligaments and cells in order to make that happen, I can't imagine that's prolonging your life. It's sort of like if a caloric deficit leads to longer life, which we know that's true, it would then seem to make sense that, exercising to a state of being capable is one thing, but getting to the muscular mass of a bodybuilder or a power lifter or strongman or any other competitor where you're going above and beyond the organism's, genetic ceiling. I don't know. It's a big gray area for me, and I will never stop exercising because I love to feel strong and I love to do physical feats. But what do you think is an acceptable level of physicality and movement for a healthy individual?
Well, you've made some very interesting points there, and I think that the answer is, unfortunately, the answer is different for everyone. I know that one of the reasons that this paradigm of harder, faster, stronger, push yourself, I see it all the time on my Instagram, like some of the people that pop up on my feed, it's this most ridiculous thing. It's like, oh, I trained like 3 times today, like gotta push myself, 400 kilogram squat or whatever it is, whatever the figures are. And I think that all stems from a root belief, which is that the body, as I mentioned earlier, the body is a machine. When the body has aspects of a machine, but it is much closer to a plant than, and it's an organic system. It's not like a mechanical system in many ways. And I think it has elements of both, but when you treat it just like a machine, and think about, this is something that blew my mind when I read it a while back. This guy was saying that a lot of the exercises that we find in modern physical culture are directly related to the Industrial Revolution, whereby human beings were designed to pull or push levers or do very mechanical actions. And man, we are not, no matter what anyone tells you, it's a lie that has been sold to us that we are just economic workhorse units that are designed to be plugged into factories or plugged into computers or plugged into desks, whatever. That's not what we are. We are growing, evolving, adapting plants in a way, and another thing it ties into is, I've said this on another interview, what's written at the Oracle at Delphi: know thyself. So you can read a book by a guy who says you need to train to failure, like tear up as much muscle tissue as you can, and that'll increase hypertrophy, and it'll create a whole bunch of genetic markers that will predispose you to long life, right? And you can read another book that says fast, intermittently. You can read another book that says do yoga and stand on your head. You can read another book that says run marathons. You can read another book that says only eat raw food. At the end of the day, you have to know yourself, right? That's the only way, dude. That's the only way. And that's part of, I can't do it for you and you can't do it for me. We can't really do that for anyone else. They have to go on the journey and they have to be aware. They have to be aware of how the food they eat makes them feel. They have to be aware of how the exercise they do makes them feel, and then adjust accordingly. And unfortunately, I cannot package that and sell it as a product. That's the thing. I can't, because otherwise I'd be a millionaire, right?
Oh, dude, I've been battling in my mind with this for years now, because as a trainer, my stuff is super effective with only 30-minute workouts, and it's just like, there's
find out more about that.
There's millions of dollars waiting to happen here. But what you're touching on is exactly what I keep coming back to. Is, anyway, my definition of health is where thought and food and movement all complement each other and are in alignment with one another. And I think I've said that before, but the most important aspect of that is accountability. And you have to be an expert on you, because, and stop me if I've said this before, because I hate to repeat myself and my brain is less stellar than I would like it to be, but no one can tell you, that your back doesn't feel pain better than you, right? There's not the best trainers in the world, the Charles Poliquins and the Kelly Starretts, don't know your body better than you. So that's up to you. That's your responsibility. No one can tell you how the skin of red bell peppers is going to go in your intestine, even if the bioavailability of that vitamin C is higher than anything else. For you, if it makes you throw up or gives you the shits, it doesn't matter. So there's no food expert that can tell you what's best for your body either. And finally, there isn't a psychologist in the world that can stop your downward spiral of thought if it's going to a negative place better than you can if you have control over your mind and a meditation practice, etc. So that I'm in my rambling once again way, I'm reaffirming what you said, that if you're not an expert on you, don't expect anyone else to be. And the greatest health that you could ever aspire to is by knowing yourself better than anyone else. So
there is, having said that, there is one thing there are a few things which, from my current perspective, I believe are true. And
TRX man, CAAs,
one of them is never underestimate capitalism's ability to insidiously and taint the quality of your food. Never underestimate that. And the more of a role a production system has played in the food that you're consuming, the more likely it is to be missing health benefits or nutrients that it may have had before, or have toxic or detrimental things added to it. That is very clear to me. I know that it's very hard for that system to mess with a piece of grass-fed beef that I got from the farmer that morning. But I also know that a packet of Doritos is on the other end of the spectrum, or whatever. You understand what I'm saying?
I do. Well, that's what I've been preaching forever. You know, it's the quality of what you put into your body that means everything in terms of being healing and making you feel great, making you feel vibrant. I'm interested in this discussion because I think it'll be interesting to see how we change as we age. I would like to revisit this and be like, well, I want to feel the same vibrancy and youth that Sylvester Stallone gets to with his HGH supplementation. When will it be time for me to address hormonal imbalances and lower testosterone numbers that I can't correct with my raw pastured eggs and my grass-fed beef? And I'm sure my opinion will then be like, well, science has a lot of answers that I didn't foresee before because I was on my high horse about, you know, being very pure. At some point, if I choose to continue to be a part of the superstructure, I may want to feel like I'm 25 when I'm 40 as well. You know, we'll see. And when we cross that bridge, I'll definitely let the audience know.
Here's another thing. When you said science may have the answers, or has the answers, the further I go down the rabbit hole, the more I'm starting to understand that magic may have the answers too.
Oh, now we're talking.
My brother, that was a very powerful conversation.
Agreed.
I always appreciate talking to you, but it's always good. Thank you very much, Thomas. For those of you who enjoy Digital Communion, please head over to iTunes and leave a review for us. As Thomas mentioned last week, we also have a website where you can watch us on video if you're only watching or only listening to this as a podcast. It's just digitalcommunion.com. And what we're really trying to do is get people to engage in the conversation. So if you'd like to leave a comment or a note or a point underneath any of the episodes, that would be fantastic. And thank you to all of those people who have emailed in and engaged with us. We really appreciate that.
Great, man. Thank you for such an awesome conversation. It's my therapy for the week. It stretched my mind quite a bit. I can't wait to hear more about this magic shit. And I'll see you next time. Keep the faith, my brother.
Blessings, my man.